Welcome to the PropTech Podcast. It's Kylie Davis here, and I'm delighted to be your host as we explore the brave new world where technology and real estate collide. I passionately believe we need to create and grow a sense of community between the innovators and real estate agents, and sharing our stories is a great way to do that. Now, the aim of each episode is to introduce listeners to a PropTech innovator who is pushing the boundaries of what's possible and explore the issues and challenges raised by the tech and how they can create amazing property experiences. And my guest in this episode is AJChand, CEO and founder of Instarent, a direct-to-landlords platform that makes it easier for landlords to manage their own properties. Now, according to AJ, self-managing landlords make up nearly a third of the property rental market in Australia, looking after over 1 million properties. And that number is even higher in the UK and New Zealand. And Instarent makes it easy for landlords to manage their properties by providing an Airbnb-styled mobile app that lets them keep track of their rental properties from anywhere and to centralise their expenses and maintenance. So here to tell us all about it, AJChand, welcome to the PropTech Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Carly. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So look, AJ, we always start with your elevator pitch. So tell me, what is the Instarent elevator pitch?
Sure. So Instarent's a property management platform available via web app and mobile app. And the core focus of it is to enable landlords and tenants to self-manage their property.
Yeah, so it's self-managed, isn't it? It's not a property manager's platform. It's specifically for landlords themselves.
That's right. Yeah, specifically for landlords and tenants at the moment, and we also have trades that are part of the platform as well. But our core focus is landlords and tenants.
Cool. And so, what's the problem that Instarent solves? Like, why do landlords need their own platform? Why aren't they using property managers?
Well, I think it started with how many landlords are currently self-managing. I was one of them when my property journey started. I was self-managing my properties, and the reason for that was, first, I could build better relationships with my tenants, and also it was more cost-effective to do it that way. So property management, I didn't have to worry about property management fees, and also just had complete transparency over my property or what was happening, and I would just like to be hands-on. It's not till later on in my career that I realized that there were a lot of self-managed landlords out there, and they were looking for solutions that would help them self-manage. But at that time, it was only Excel sheets, really. You could just put in the details of your tenant and try and put in as much information as you can, and then try and justify it all to your accountant at the end of the day. Yeah. So moving from that, that's when the idea of self-management came to me. I started building sort of little pieces of software that were helping me with communication because I was in technology at that time. And then that grew to what is Instarent today. We initially started with 20 or 50 users, and then we had a lot of feedback, and then we grew from that feedback, and now we are at the level of product where we do end-to-end property management for self-managed landlords. And the idea behind that was more to virtualize the property manager, to bring it all to a technology. Imagine having an app that is the property manager.
Right, fantastic. So how many rental properties in Australia are self-managed at the moment?
At the moment, it's 32% of the market. It's 1.2 million properties, and
wow.
What we've seen, it is quite big in Australia. Globally, it's actually bigger, but Australia is 32% at the moment, 1.2 million properties. And I think that is more due to a lot of landlords that have multiple properties, 3 or 4 or 5 that they're managing at any one time, and it becomes an area where they're looking at cost effectiveness and transparency and how they could evolve their portfolio even further. And in order to do that, they have to really understand what's currently happening with their portfolio. So a lot of landlords are very proactive about it. And with COVID, we've seen that a lot of landlords are starting to look at solutions that brings them more control, because the ability to work with real estate agencies or property managers is not quite there anymore. And a lot of landlords that were used to using platforms like Airbnb, for example, have shifted across to long-term, but they were looking for a similar solution. So COVID has seen us grow quite rapidly, and also given us a lot of tailwind going into 2021.
Yeah. So this is quite, I mean, so there's a couple of kind of key important things that are coming out of this for me from the real estate agent point of view or the property manager point of view is that, first of all, that there's such a large proportion of landlords out there that are looking to self-manage, like about a third of the market basically. And also that these are landlords who are what a property manager would call a whale, in that they're people with multiple properties. And I guess if you own those properties in lots of different locations, the standard model would require you to have different property managers in each of those geographies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it fundamentally comes down to a core problem that we have with how the properties are managed in terms of an agency. For example, you would have a property in WA, you'd have a property in Queensland, you'll have a property in New South Wales. And what would happen with that is that you will get 4 different agencies giving you 4 different sets of data for your property. And then you'll have to correlate it all and put it all together. So landlords want complete visibility. They want visibility of what's happening within each of the properties, what the revenues are doing, what are the arrears doing for these properties, what are the inspections looking like, are there any repairs? And I think that is what is driving landlords to have everything under the one roof, is having properties all over the state that you can manage within the one dashboard, instead of having 4 or 5 different agencies with different relationships you have to manage and receiving different data in different formats. I just don't think there's enough efficiency to manage your portfolio that way.
Yeah. So look, there's a lot involved in managing a property though, and lots of inspections that are required, lots of legislation. How does and all of that can be different state to state. How does InstaRent manage that complexity?
So, although we entered the market to bring as much technology to make efficient as many processes as we could, we still have to adhere to compliance. So we are a licensed agency in New South Wales, and that is our predominant market. So being a licensed agency means that we are aware of all the compliance changes that are happening within real estate, and we also build a bridge between the traditional to how technology now enters the market as well. So yeah, that's something we couldn't ignore. We couldn't just technology. We had to get a license as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to hear. So if I'm a landlord, and I don't want to do my inspections because I'm, living in one suburb and my property is maybe in country New South Wales or something, somewhere else a long way away, how does InstaRent help me manage that?
So that is first thing we wanted to address was really the 32% of the market which was self-managed. So they were currently doing it, and that means that they could go and inspect their own properties for that matter. So we were just giving them technology to make it more efficient. However, InstaRent is exploring currently ways to add to our service repertoire to get more property managers involved, where we could have inspections done on behalf of landlords if they choose to do that. So although we're only addressing the 32% of the market right now, the team's working extremely hard to see how we can better capitalize on the rest of the market that would need inspections, for example, or would need someone physically to go out and visit the property. And in this case, InstaRent doesn't do it at this stage, but it is something that's definitely part of our product roadmap as we move forward.
Okay. But one of the things that you do, so your platform at the moment is primarily for landlords who want to control that sort of stuff and want to do that themselves, but it does also help landlords coordinate trades and maintenance, doesn't it? And how does it do that?
So the trades it's a big part of your property. I think repairs and the repairs will always happen, and also in terms of managing the tenant relationship, repairs should be dealt with efficiently and quickly as well. So the way InstaRent brings it all together is they gives the ability for the tenant to log a repair. So if there's a leaking tap, for example, they'll take an image of that or a video, and they will upload that, and then InstaRent and the landlord have complete transparency. They will see it straight away as it appears. Then the landlord also has an option to browse our tradesman portfolio who are vetted really well through the team, and we only take a select few that will receive the repair request, and they will then act to get that fixed, to go out there, quote on the job itself, and also liaise with the landlord and tenant via our platform to schedule those works. And also when those works are done, then the tenant needs to accept that the work was done. The landlord needs to accept that it was done satisfactorily. And then the trades, from that point, closes that ticket for that job.
Right. Okay, cool. And so is that why now you guys are a mobile only app, aren't you? You don't operate on desktop.
No, we do. We have
do.
a web app. Yeah,
Yep.
we have a web application and also a mobile app. And
Mhm.
mobile app mainly for making tasks like these easier. So taking photos or videos straight off your phone and then uploading it through the app. It's a lot more efficient. Also, when you're doing virtual inspections, for example, walking around to record the house or to take images of the house, that's all real time, and it works very efficiently, so it doesn't lose any data. Which is why the mobile is there. Also, pay on the mobile as well. Pay on the app, which is a great benefit. Also, notifications, real time. As you know, you'd use apps like Uber and what might be. So what happens is you will get notified on every step of the way, and it's all real time. So we couldn't ignore the fact that we couldn't just go web app and just be software as a service. We really wanted to be interactive software that helps you manage your property, and the app is a reason for that.
Cool. And so the thoughts of things I can pay for, as a tenant, I can pay my rent, and as a landlord, I can pay my tradie that just did the work, or?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Very cool. So look, how big is InstaRent at the moment?
At the moment, it's we have around 12 or 13 staff. They mainly consist of developers.
Yep.
We never shy away from the fact that we are a technology company, and,
Yep.
and a property technology company first and a property management company second.
Mm-hmm.
So we have developers, around 8 developers, and 4 in customer service, and also the executive staff on top of that. The co-founders and the founders who help drive the business, and advisors. So it is quite big, but for the last 3 years, we have been gaining momentum in terms of getting a lot of staff and a lot of individuals who are actually buying into our mission and our vision to fix this real estate sector. And we've been very lucky to recruit some very talented people in that time. So the team's growing quite well. The platform itself is getting thousands of visits a day. It's interacting well. We have over 1,000 landlords. So that has been growing quite rapidly. In COVID, we've seen at least a 30% rise in terms of signups, and I guess the initiative that landlords and tenants want to put together to manage their property moving forward, being in this COVID period, has really driven that success for us.
Yeah, I was really interested in your comment before that landlords who have been used to using things like Airbnb, like have been sort of transitioning over to you guys as they've taken their properties off the short-term market and put them onto long-term.
Yes. So I think Airbnb is a great example of how it can shift the user's perception of how things are done. So before that, you also had stays and all of that are still around, but Airbnb really came in with a new set of technology, with a new perspective that it should be very easy to do bookings for short terms and communicate through the platform as well.
Yeah.
Instarent uses the same logic. It's the same vision. It is, as it's evolved over the last 3 years. It was initially harder to use at the initial phases, as all technology is, and then as time goes, as we get more users, as we get more perspectives, the app becomes a lot more efficient. And the way we see it now, it could take a landlord up to about 10 minutes to set up a property, invite the tenant, set up all their paperwork, and set up their payments all automated within 10 minutes. And it's set and forget from that stage on. The app will remind you about notifications. It will remind you about repairs. It will let you know how your payments are going. It will do your end of financial year. It will record everything. And that is that is why I think landlords are making the shift, because how easy it is to set up and then run from that point forward.
Yeah.
So Airbnb was a great example of how that was done in the short-term industry, and the long-term, there was just no platforms or apps that were doing anything similar, which we thought was just not good enough for a market, especially like Australia, and how good we are with technology as Australians.
And now let's hear a word from our sponsors. For almost 16 years, Direct Connect has made moving easy for over 1.2 million renters and homeowners by arranging connections to a wide range of services, from electricity and gas to internet and pay TV. With a national team of local account managers who are experts in the industry, Direct Connect are there to support your real estate business with competitive rewards for every successful connection, plus an industry-leading rewards program. The connection process is simple, and Direct Connect's always-on guarantee ensures your customers will be connected on the day they move in. Direct Connect offers a range of market-leading suppliers, and Direct Connect has now made it even easier than ever to send connections, directly integrating with MRI Software's Property Tree. So in just a few clicks, while processing a tenancy, you can send the connection details through and get your customers connected. To make the right connection and find out how Direct Connect can make moving easy for you and easy for your customers, visit agents.directconnect.com.au or call 1300 558 169. So AJ, what's your background? Like, how did you get to start up a prop tech startup? You said you were a landlord, and this sort of began with you asking the question of, do I have to do it through a property manager? But what's your broader tech background?
So 15 years ago, I studied real estate, became a licensed real estate agent, and then I started selling with Ray White.
Okay.
Property, yeah. And then I became a property manager as well while I was selling. So I wanted to really explore that. And I remember walking into the property management room for the first time, and I just looked at the stacks of paperwork that were lying around for each of the properties, and I just pretty much turned around and I said, okay. I'd rather, yeah, exactly. I'd rather sell. But as time went forward, I went into property management because I was really curious about it. And just the amount of paperwork and the IDs we had, like IDs for landlords, IDs for tenants, paperwork, signatures, bank statements, all of these things, which are
trust accounting.
yeah, and all of this is very personal to someone. And agencies go out, like, as bad as it might be, but agencies do go out of business, or they do sell their rent rolls. And there's all this data that you've collected of both the landlords and tenants that are sitting within folders that then you're going to share, or you're going to lose all completely. It's first I saw a security risk with it. Second, I saw an efficiency problem with it, on how it took how long to do each of the tasks, and also then looking at it from a landlords and tenants perspective, they weren't really happy with it either. So that was 15 years ago. That's the first exposure I had to property management and real estate. After real estate, I joined Telstra and Vodafone, Optus as well, all three big telcos in networks, to architecture, more go on to the technology side to start seeing how networks worked. And that was a great experience to get my first exposure to how technology was in the past and also where it's moving to. Then and then it sort of evolved from there. Couple of other startups I was involved in. I worked for startups that were in the facial biometric space. They were doing iris verification. They were doing sort of the counterterrorism funding side of it. They were doing AML, KYC, which was know your customer. And all of those elements also then gave me the background in technology security, which then exposed me to other development houses that we were working with at the time. And then I think it was my time to develop something. I think I had learned enough, I had enough experiences. So went into developing, assembled my first development team, and started looking at areas that we could focus on. And at that time, because I was self-managing, I already had a little piece of software that I was writing. So it just made sense for us to develop that further.
Fantastic. So now, when you guys kicked off, you got some crowdfunding, didn't you? Tell us a bit about how that happened and what that experience is like.
So the crowdfunding actually came 2 years later,
Uh-huh.
from when we actually started developing and launching. I think we had launched around 7 months before that. Then we went into crowdfunding, and I think it was more because we were so active from a sales perspective, talking to landlords and talking to tenants, getting them on board onto Instarent and our mission to what we're trying to solve. And a lot of landlords actually started suggesting this is a good business, and it is a good mission, and we trust the team. Can we get more involved with it? Can we become investors in it? Can we become advisors in it?
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, it became a little bit too much to ignore, because we had all this interest from the crowd, is what we call them now, and that was what spurred us to go into crowdfunding to get the people who've been using InstaRent, that have been championing InstaRent, that have been giving us feedback, give them the option to buy into this before anyone else, was the idea. And to create referral base at the same time, there was a lot of PR at that same time as well. We were published by news.com.au, Sky News at that time, with live TV, and also AFR as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that really brought the brand into the public light. And also it got our landlords to have a bigger buy-in, some of our crowd investors to have a buy-in, and some investors that invested into InstaRent then became customers of InstaRent and use it as a benefit for their property portfolio. So it was a win-win for everyone. And
And so,
also it was because we went to a point where we really realized that, in order to start raising for a startup, from previous experiences, I believe that we would need the product that was live. We would need a stable team behind it, a product that was live, that was scaling, that had customers, um, before we even went into any sort of funding round. And the crowdfunding was the first one.
and so what platform, like who did you crowdfund it through? Like, did you do it through a
Yeah,
platform or?
so there are some really good crowdfunding platforms out there. I think what we went with was Birchal. Birchal is based out of Melbourne. It's probably one of the most successful crowdfunding platforms in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
and it was it was good working with them and launching our crowdfund, getting our message out to the public and to their network,
Yep.
and that's how we end up raising with them.
Fantastic. And can you tell us how much you raised through them, or is that
No,
classified?
that's all public actually. So it is a crowdfund. So if you look,
Yeah, there you go. It's very transparent.
yeah, I think we breed transparency from how we develop products to how we communicate where the company is. Being honest and transparent is best policy for us.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, so we raised 333,000 of
Okay.
the crowdfund,
Yep.
and that was we were targeting to get to around 200,000.
Yep.
We surpassed that, and it was 1 week before Christmas, so it could have been better, but it was 1 week before Christmas that we closed the round.
Yep.
And I think more for motivation, that the team was so driven, knowing that we have accomplished a crowdfund going into the new year 2020, and he was looking so good, and it still is, but
and
at
then
that point
and
we
then
didn't think about it.
COVID.
Well, at that point no one knew about COVID, right? No one
Yeah.
was it was just so much enthusiasm in the market at the end of 2019, and as you would
Yeah.
have seen, especially in prop tech and fintech and travel tech, and we were all just rearing to go for 2020, and we thought that
Yeah.
would be the year.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. The less, I think the sooner we get to 31st of December 2020, the happier everyone will be, right? So look, you guys, what's your relationship with tenants? Like, does InstaRent attract tenants? Can landlords find tenants through InstaRent? Tell us your tenant story.
Tenants are more important to us in terms of a landlord and tenant relationship. Our technology is built as much for tenants as it is for landlords.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest gap in the market we saw was, like you'd say, like, you have so much software in real estate, as well, for real estate agencies, but no one really addresses the tenants' needs or gives them any value add services that they can use within. It's mainly concentrating on the golden egg, which is a
Mm-hmm.
landlord. Um, But Instarent, we saw that differently because I've been a tenant as well, and most of our staff here rent at the moment. So we looked at going, okay, what does tenant need? And we went through case studies. Tenants hate applying for properties. That's paper, applications for 4 or 5 properties that they might visit. And again, supply details, bank account details, ID information. Also, they just don't have. There's no transparency when they get rejected from a property, which is if you don't know what you're doing wrong, how do you improve? And so that was one of the key factors. No transparency around that. There was no ability to apply in real time or to schedule an inspection in real time. If they wanted to, you had to attend the open houses. And what if you couldn't? It just didn't seem fair. It just felt like the control was within the agencies and the landlords. However, the tenants had no control, and they're the ones paying your mortgage. They're the ones paying your rent. So Instarent actually brings together a rental resume of sorts where you can put all your details in at once, and then you start applying for properties. And when you apply for a property, if you get rejected, you get told why you got rejected. And we will constantly as well, we will talk to our tenants and find out their needs and send them links to properties that they might be interested in. And because it's self-managed, it moves a lot faster because landlords want a tenant in as soon as possible. So they want to have a look at how the tenants are tracking within the platform to get all the agency, to get the tenancy agreement done, for example. And also Equifax checking in terms of the tenant background checks and all of that, making sense of all of that data to see who's the most likely candidate for their property. So Instarent's algorithm makes it all very simple for the landlord. It actually classifies all the tenants and makes them all visible and ranks them based on their credit checks or their bankruptcy checks or whatever it might be, the tenancy background checks. So then the tenant also has the option to pay rent through it. So the rents are within the platform. They can do inspections through it. If they want to do video inspections, they can do that. If the landlord does not want to go to the property and just wants a video satisfactory, he can request that. They can log real-time repairs and see what's happening with it. They can see which tradesmen have been assigned, when it's getting done, and then the trades talk to them directly, so the landlords. And it just means that everything happens a lot quicker within the ecosystem. So tenants can also connect utilities through us. They can connect gas, electricity, and they can organize remove lists. They can do all of that and store all of that within their expenses as well, because we always ignore that tenants have their financials to do as well. They pay rent, they pay electricity, Foxtel, internet, and that should be all logged within the expenses section as well, because they have taxes like everyone else does. So tenant was a core focus for what we did. And I think it's paid dividends right now, because tenants are the ones recommending their landlords to join Instarent because they want to use us to manage their property.
Right. Okay. Interesting. As a real estate agent, you know you need to be doing more content marketing. But creating posts for social media, creating videos and reports is hard work, lots of hard work, and it takes time. So that's why you need HomePrezo. If you're a typical agent posting 1 or 2 social media posts a week, HomePrezo can save you between 75 to 100 hours a year. How many more properties could you sell if you had that time back? HomePrezo can help you create engaging, informative videos about how the property market in your local suburb is performing. Plus, it makes creating suburb reports, rental videos for landlords, and social media infographics an absolute piece of cake. If you can type in a suburb or type an address, you can create a Prezo using HomePrezo in just a few minutes. Listeners to the PropTech podcast receive a 14-day free trial. Now that's twice as long as the normal free trial. So go to homeprezo.com.au and click the sign up button and use the code PropTech to get your extended free trial, or click the link in our show notes. So look, over the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of stuff, a lot of, technology and adoption going on in the traditional property management space. And there's a lot of tech out there that's sort of now trying to make property managers' jobs more efficient or easier. Do you think the bar's being lifted?
Yeah, I think so. The
Mm.
bar has been lifted, and that is purely due to what the consumers are demanding.
Yeah.
And the key fundamental for us was the grandest vision is to learn the experience of landlord and tenant, make that as efficient as possible where they can do it themselves, and then Instarent also has the ability to release that software to agencies when we have learned enough, when it has automated itself enough, when it's learned, its algorithms have developed to a point where it makes the agency's life a lot easier. Also looking at some of the softwares that are used by agencies at the moment, like I wouldn't name them, but there are a lot of softwares that are used by agencies that are failing to innovate. They're failing to learn from the the customer interaction. For them, the customer is the agent. For
Yeah.
us, the customer is the market.
Yeah.
So it's landlord and tenant. And if you're just going directly business to business, you will never learn what is actually needed or what the demands of these technologically driven landlords and tenants are.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what do you think the next 5 years holds for property management and in this sort of tenants and landlord space? Do you think tenants and landlords are the right words?
um,
They're so medieval.
well, the way we refer to it is the tenant, that's their home.
Yeah.
And regardless of who pays the mortgage, it's their home. They have
Yeah.
moved in, they've got their furniture there. And the landlords, they're property investors.
Yeah.
That's what they are.
Yep.
And property investors and any investor is going to look at efficiency, transparency, and capital growth.
Mm-hmm.
Those three things. Maximizing rental yield is first and foremost, especially in the COVID market and post-COVID. Rental yields, relationship with tenants, making sure the ability to pay, making sure you're managing your asset. So yeah, landlords and tenants, maybe not property investors and homeowners.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you mentioned before that you've noticed that since COVID hit, you guys have grown quite considerably because you've especially had this influx of short-term landlords move over onto the platform. But what do you think the outcome of what do you think the kind of washout of COVID is going to be on property management from what you're seeing?
I think agencies have built a model where they mainly rely on their sales and not their property management over time. And that's why you're seeing a growth now where a lot of companies are emerging that are only doing property management.
Mm-hmm.
If the business is reliant on the sales side of the business to keep everything going and property management is secondary, we will see that a lot of property management or rent roles will go up for sale.
Yep.
So that is a sad reality about how sales drives the agency model.
Yep.
Also, with property management, it is going to shift drastically, I think, as well because of users being more technologically advanced. I think users will look at more options in terms of how much they're paying commissions for property management, and I think that will increase competition. That means that a lot of property managers might just price themselves out of the market.
Mm.
So a lot of variables in terms of property, what's going to happen post COVID, but I think we're all very aware that it is going to be a downward trend for a while.
Yeah. And so what do you think the next 5 years holds for property management? Like what's your crystal ball tell you, AJ?
I think, as always, good property managers will always survive, no matter which market, and it's based on the relationship and trust that they will survive. But efficiency and technology will definitely be what drives the next 5 years. And at the end of 5 years, if agencies are willing to let go of that's how we've always done it, to now embracing the technology and embracing efficiencies and doing what our startups do all the time, pivoting their business models and their strategies to better compensate for what this market holds. I think that will be the winning factor for the next 5 years. But I think the writing's on the wall in terms of automation, like algorithms and technology that will be more predominant in this market.
Mm. So what does the future hold for Instarent? I mean, you've had your crowdfunding late last year. You've had a big year this year. Where are you guys headed?
We are headed in the same trajectory. I think startups, as you know, I think we are not a startup anymore. We're a scale up.
Yep.
And we're scaling in and taking a lot more market share within Australia is our core focus at the moment. However, there are prospects to take InstaRent model to the international markets as well. And as a team, we are just committed to growing our team, to learning more about landlords and tenants and making our product a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
That is our core focus at the moment, and scaling and making sure that we give the right service. And I think you can't always separate technology from service. They go hand in hand when it comes to prop tech and property management, especially. So do a lot more work on that side. Listen to our clients, build a lot more trust, and push InstaRent as a very good global player, but starting domestically and making sure that we learn as much as we can from this market.
Fantastic. And look, and if there's 1.2 million self-managed landlords out there, and you've got 1,000 or so landlords on your platform at the moment, you've still got a lot of runway for growth here, I'm assuming.
That's right. Yeah, and
yep.
we do have a lot of growth, and also we are not keen on making some crucial errors that sometimes startups make, because growth is also something that is a scary path. Because what you'll have is, although we all dream of it, once you start growing at a level, you have to make sure that your development house grows with you, and your sales and your marketing and your customer service all scales at the same rate. So otherwise it becomes a little bit overbearing, and you could easily demotivate the whole team. So it is slow and steady for us. It has been for the past 3 years. But like I said, that is not because we're driven by generating significant amounts of revenue or what might be. It is driven by us knowing, really committed to learning this industry, learning what the problems are, and giving a solution that will not only stick now, but it will stick for the next 20 or 30 years. So I guess it's a long game.
Yep. No, well done. Well, look, I look forward to hearing more about your success at InstaRent. Thank you so much for your time. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you, Kylie. Always a pleasure.
So that was AJChand from Instarent. Now, normally I focus the podcast on technology that helps agents and property managers, but I wanted to get AJ onto the show because I think there are some really important lessons the industry can learn from how Instarent and similar disruptors look at our market. And as I mentioned when we interviewed Meena Radhakrishnan from Different last month, innovation is not just about doing what we do a bit better or a bit faster. It's actually about looking at the curveballs that are being thrown at us and working out how we deal with those. And the thing that each of these disruptors in property management have in common is that they're not just looking at how they can offer our traditional customers, the landlords, a better service. They're actually asking what the service experience is like for the customers of our customers and what can be done and improved there. And invariably, when the customers of our customers or our tenants have a better experience, that flows back to improve the experiences for all parties in a rental property transaction. So I love how the growth of InstaRent was crowdfunded by what is effectively a group of raving fans. It shows how motivated so many people are out there to support better experiences in renting. The strength platforms like InstaRent offer is for landlords who do have larger portfolios and who see their investments as their job. And this gives them the tools to manage those properties seamlessly and have a whole property portfolio view, which is virtually impossible in a geographically managed structure. I also love that InstaRent looks at the tenant experience and is looking for ways to streamline and make that easier. Now, will every tenant want to rent through a private landlord? No. And will every landlord want to manage their own property? Highly unlikely. But the fact that tools like InstaRent are not only making it possible, but super easy, and has that core group of raving fans at its centre, is part of the growing evidence that demonstrates that we as an industry are being fragmented and that we need to work hard to remain competitive. So what do you think? Now, if you've enjoyed this episode of the PropTech Podcast, I would love you to tell your friends, drop me a line on email, kylie@realcontent.guru, say hello on LinkedIn or on Facebook. You can follow this podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and Apple iTunes. I'd like to thank my audio support, Charlie Hollins, the fabulous Jill Escudero, and our sponsors, Smidge Official Wines of the PropTech community, Direct Connect, making moving easy, and Home Prezzo, now part of ActivePipe and making email marketing easier than ever before. Thanks everyone. Until next week, stay safe and keep on PropTeching.